And welcome to Music 101. Music 101 is created to empower music itself, a legendary icon in the music industry. The Ian Hunter Connection, mapping the rock and roll network, RIP 2025 Part 2.
That's it. Rest in peace. We're introducing the passing of artists in part one, and this review is part two of that series. We've noted those luminaries who have passed from the scene last year. Their music continues to dazzle and delight us. These are primaries, the tier two artists who are not directly tied to Ian Hunter, but inhabit a similar sonic landscape.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your legacy to the world. For sure, we are so grateful because you shared your part to the world. So, Mr. Mick, what are the examples of tier 2 artists?
Well, we could consider Sam Moore, one half of Sam and Dave. A song like Hold On, I'm Coming radiates a kind of gospel lace encouragement that sits underneath a lot of rock's best ballads and anthems. Hunter's empathy for the down and out kid in the crowd isn't soul music in form, but spiritually it's not far off. The soul singer offers you a hand, Hunter offers you a mic and a verse. Then there's Garth Hudson, keyboardist and sonic architect for the band. Cue up the weight, and you're in a world of mythic small towns, burdens, and moral crossroads. Hunter's narrative instincts, especially in those songs that feel like short stories set to music, live in the same neighborhood. Both artists build worlds where regular people are pressed up against spiritual questions. Marianne Faithfull's late 70s comeback with Broken English is another piece of the resonance puzzle. A voice scarred by time, singing from the far side of innocence, still insists that speech and song matters. Hunter is not as sonically dark, but he shares that survivor's posture. Finally, John Lodge of the Moody Blues takes the constellation into more explicitly philosophical rock. Spin, I'm just a singer in a rock and roll band, and you have the front man wrestling with his own role as entertainer, prophet, and distraction. Hunter lives in that same tension. He knows he's just a rock singer, and yet his songs keep circling questions of meaning, purpose, and identity. Tier two, then, is not about name dropping, it's about the depth of resonance. In conclusion, it's about saying if you tune your ear to Hunter's blend of grit, wit, and spiritual ache, you'll start to hear it in places you might not have expected.
Indeed. So, Mr. Meg, let me push you here. Why does it matter that we distinguish between the tier 1 and the tier 2? Couldn't we just list everyone who sounds vaguely like Hunter and call it a day?
Well, it's a fair question. The reason we need tiers is the same reason astronomers distinguish between planets, moons, asteroids, and comets. They're all in the solar system, but they play different roles in a gravitational dance. Tier 1 artists, Ozzy Osbourne, Mick Ralphs, Rick Derringer, David Johansen, are the ones where we can trace direct musical lineage or shared cultural moment. They're either playing the same stages, sharing the same producers, or explicitly influencing each other's work. These are relationships you can cite in a rock encyclopedia. To this list of artists, we need to add Hilly Michaels, drummer for Ian Hunter, who passed away late in the year. Beyond his solo success, Michaels was a session saint, providing the foundational pulse for some of the greatest in 1970s rock. His work with Ian Hunter and Mick Ronson, particularly on the classic Just Another Night, showcases a drumming style that is rock solid yet incredibly fluid. Hilly also backed Hunter collaborator Ellen Foley on Night Out, for example, on We Belong to the Night. Michaels was a master of the big beat, a rhythmic architect spanning from early collaborations with young Michael Bolton in the band Joy to his definitive work with Sparks and Ian Hunter. Michael's tenure with Sparks during the Big Beat 1976 era was a masterclass in an era of burgeoning power pop. Michaels provided substance for the Mail brothers' eccentricities. He can be heard on Sparks' Filler Up Live from 1976. In 1980s, Michaels stepped into the spotlight with his solo album Calling All Girls, produced by the legendary Roy Thomas Baker from the Queen and the Cars. The title track, Calling All Girls, became an early MTV staple, and continues to be a pinnacle of power pop. Baker's production style, characterized by comprised drums and massed operatic vocals, creates an acoustic cathedral. Michael's vocal delivery on this track, combined with the cheerleader backing vocals featuring guests like Ellen Foley and Liza Minnelli, functions effectively. Michaels also contributed Something on Your Mind from the film Caddyshack. Wrapping up Tier 1 artists, we can move to the Tier 2 artists, Mullen, Moore, Hudson, Faithful, Cropper, Lodge, who are the ones where the connection is more thematic. You won't find them on a Mott the Hoople tour bill, but if you spend time with both catalogs, you can start hearing similar themes. Think of it this way: Tier 1 is about direct influence, Tier 2 is about parallel evolution. Different species, same environment, similar survival strategies. In conclusion, that's what makes the constellation model so powerful. It lets us see the ecology of rock, not just the family tree.
Mr. Mix, you're always tracking the inner life behind the music. What is the spiritual and psychological whether you hear in Hunter's work?
We're not just to nerd out over gear, keys, and chart placements, though we'll do some of that. We're also here to talk about the interior weather of these songs. Hunter writes like someone who has stared down a few abysses: career disappointment, industry betrayal, relational breakdowns, the usual cocktail of sex and substance temptations that came with 1970s rock life. But instead of collapsing into nihilism or pure cynicism, his best work keeps circling back to themes that live surprisingly close to the Christian humanist territory: the dignity of ordinary people, the kid at the gig, the girl in the back row, the aging rock fan who still believes, the tension between ego and service. Is the performer here to be worshiped or to give voice to the crowd's unspoken prayers? The question of vocation: what does it mean to spend your life just playing rock and roll while people around you are falling apart? On the surface, it's a cheeky romp through the life of a rock and roll Romeo. But listen to the details. The narrator is exhausted, defensive, and more than a little self loathing. Underneath the swagger is a guy who knows the high cost of cheap connection. That's attachment theory with a backbeat. Put differently, Hunter's songs live at the intersection of attachment wounds, spiritual hunger, and electric guitars. That's exactly the space where many of the other artists in our constellation move, whether they name it in the same code of language or not. When Ozzy wails about madness on Crazy Train, when Johansson sneers his way through personality crisis, when Faithful smokes through broken English, they are all, in their way, preaching sermons about fractured selves and a fallen world. Hunter's unique gift is to keep one foot planted in confession and the other planted in community. He never forgets the audience. He is painfully aware that his job is not just to process his own demons, but to open up a space where misfits can feel seen. Even rock stars need attachment, and the theory is psychologically sound. In conclusion, the Ian Hunter constellation is not just a rock history diagram, it's a map of how artists metabolize pain, fame, faith, and failure in public.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, it's a fame, Mr. Meg. You mentioned attachment theory. Can you unpack that? And how does Hunter's work speak to attachment wounds?
In psychology, attachment theory developed by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth describes how early relational experiences shape our capacity for intimacy, trust, and self regulation across the lifespan. People with secure attachment can connect deeply without losing themselves. People with anxious or avoidant attachment patterns struggle with intimacy. They either cling too tightly or push people away. Rock and roll as a lifestyle is designed to produce insecure attachment. You're constantly moving, surrounded by adoring strangers, rewarded for performances rather than presence. Relationships become transactional. Intimacy becomes a luxury you can't afford because the tour bus leaves at dawn. Hunter's songs are full of characters navigating that minefield. Once bitten, twice shy is a textbook case. The narrator has been burned by intimacy, so he adopts a playboy persona as armor. But the armor doesn't fit right. He's aware of his own defenses, aware that he's protecting a wound even as he's inflicting new ones. Compare that to, say, Led Zeppelin's Whole Lotta Love, pure id, No reflection, just conquest. Hunter's songs never let you off that easily. There's always a mirror held up, always a moment where the narrator admits, I know what I'm doing and I hate it and I can't stop. That kind of relational intelligence, the capacity to narrate your own brokenness without either wallowing or pretending, is what links Hunter to artists like Marianne Faithfull, whose broken English is a document of survival after addiction and abandonment, and Joey Mullen, whose post Badfinger work carries the weight of lost bandmates and broken promises. These are not songs of victory, they're songs of endurance. In conclusion, in a culture that worships winners, endurance is a radically countercultural message.
You're addressing this idea of vocation, Mr. Meg. That Hunter is wrestling with the means to be rock performer. Why is it a big deal?
Because it's the question that sits beneath every artist's work, even if they don't name it. Why am I doing this? What is this actually for? For a lot of rock fans, the stars, the answer is simple: fame, sex, money, ego. Fair enough. But for artists in the Hunter constellation, Lodge's I'm just a singer in a rock and roll band, Ozzy's Crazy Train, even Garth Hudson's keyboard and meditations on the band's records, there's a deeper question lurking. Am I a prophet, a con artist, or a court jester? Hunter's songs live in that ambiguity. He's keenly aware that rock and roll is entertainment, spectacle, sometimes even a distraction from the harder work of living. But he's also aware of that kid in the back row, the one where has no one else to know where to go. Rock and roll might be the only sermon they hear that week. That tension between disposable entertainment and sacred vocation is what gives Hunter's work its moral weight. He's not trying to redeem rock and roll or baptize it into respectability. He's trying to honor what actually does, gives voice to people who feel voiceless, create community among misfits, and insist against all evidence that beauty and meaning are still possible in a broken world. In conclusion, that's a claim, even if Hunter never steps into a pulpit.
You mentioned Sam from
Sam,
Sam and Dave earlier. What would you know about him?
Sam Moore, the tenor of the legendary duo Sam and Dave, was more than a vocalist. He was a master of the spiritual breath that defines the Southern soul tradition. Born Samuel David Moore in Miami in 1935, his vocal architecture was forged in the heat of the Black Gospel Church before being secularized at Stax Records under the guidance of Isaac Hayes and David Porter. Moore embodied ecstatic harmony, using his piercing higher register to act as a call to the congregation or the audience, while his partner, Dave Prater, provided the grounding response. This double dynamite energy was not merely a performance, it was a physical manifestation of the call and response liturgy, a shared reference point where the personal ache of the singer became a universal anthem of resilience. Despite the outward communion of their hits like Soul Man and Hold On, I'm Coming, Moore's relationship with Prater was a study in the fragmentation of the self described by modern trauma research. For over a decade, the two men famously refused to speak off stage, a silence that became absolute after a 1968 domestic tragedy involving Prater. As I discussed earlier in another part of the series, commitment without systems is a sentiment, and the duo lacked the communal architecture to heal their rift. Both men struggled to find in the grueling high pressure environment of the 1960s soul circuit. Their discord serves as a cautionary tale. Even the most beautifully melody, but that's the harmony, can become noise if the underlying rhythm of the relationship, the covenant, is broken. After years of battling a severe addiction to heroin, a neurobiological cage that high level trauma research of psychologists suggests is often a survival strategy for an overwhelmed nervous system, Moore found stability through the support of his wife, Joyce. His recovery in the early 1980s was a literal resurrection rhythm, a rewiring of the brain's reward systems through the disciplines of faith and communal accountability. He emerged as the greatest living soul singer, as Bruce Springsteen frequently introduced him, using his healed wounds to advocate for the artist's rights in drug prevention. Moore's death last year in January marked the end of an era, but his journey reminds us that even when the mood of a career fades, the sacred promise of a life redeemed can create a melody that outlasts the shadows. Sam was known for When Something Is Wrong with My Baby and I Thank You. The duo recorded not only Soul Man, but also Soul Sunday. In conclusion, the duo blazed a hard fought route for 1960s soul music.
1960 Soul's music. We love that, right, Mr. Mink?
Y- You got it.
Then then there is a Garth Hudson from the band. What should we know about him?
Garth Hudson, who passed into eternity in early 2025 as the last surviving member of the band, was a quiet, bearded professor whose musical architecture provided the sanctuary for rock's most rustic hymns. Born in Windsor, Ontario in 1937, Hudson was a classically trained virtuoso who steeped his youth in the rigorous counterpoint of Bach and the somber echoes of his uncle's funeral parlor. Hudson embodied stability, both in his lifelong marriage to his wife, Maud, and in his role as a musical teacher for his bandmates. He famously negotiated a $10 weekly fee from the other Hawks of the band to give them music lessons, a practical covenant that satisfied his conservative parents while allowing him to infuse a bar band's grit with the sacramental complexity of a high church liturgy. Hudson's primary tool for his spiritual work was the Lowry organ, an instrument he chose for its ability to mimic the human voice through pitch bending and idiosyncratic synthesis. He famously told Martin Scorsese in The Last Waltz from 1976 that musicians on 52nd Street were the greatest priests because they were doing healing work. Whether he was crafting the swampy wah wah drenched clavinet in Up on Cripple Creek or the sprawling Bach inspired genetic method intro to chest fever, Hudson was performing a kind of neurobiological regulation. By layering disparate genres, polka, jazz, gospel, and classical, he created a sonic, secure attachment for the listener, grounding the chaotic energy of the 1960s in timeless textures. As the last original member of the ensemble that defined Americana type of music, Hudson's long survival and continued dedication to his craft served as a living testament to the soul's capacity for endless growth. Unlike many of his contemporaries who succumbed to the drift of the era's excess, Hudson remained an enigma of discipline and sweetness. His legacy is not found in the spotlight of the singer, but in the architecture of the songs, the accordion on When I Paint My Masterpiece, or the sweeping saxophone on It Makes No Difference. In the end, Garth Hudson didn't just play the notes, he built the room where the soul could finally hear itself think, proving, in conclusion, that the most profound protest against a cynical age is a lifetime of faithful, luminous beauty.
A lifetime luminous beauty. Well, tell us about Marian Faithful, who was not merely a pop survivor but living a liturgy of the human condition. What is her hard won redemption, Mr. Mac?
Faithful's early career, epitomized by the 1964 version of As Tears Go By the Rolling Stones, because that's their song, presents a voice that F. Max Mueller might have recognized as the solar myth of the 1960s, a symbol of dawn and pristine light. Yet, as she moved into the 1970s, her voice underwent a physiological and spiritual transubstantiation. The angelic timbre was ravaged by what contemporary trauma research, such as the Body Keeps the Score book, identifies as the somatic imprint of prolonged stress and addiction. When she emerged with broken English, she was no longer the object of the gaze, she was the witness. In her mid career masterpieces like The Ballad of Lucy Jordan, Faithful explores liminality, the space between the map of one's expectations and the territory of reality. The song and her 1987 revisit of As Tears Go By function as a gravelly delivery that forces the listener to confront the now against the then. Her voice becomes a site of negative capability, a term she borrowed from John Keats, the ability to remain in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. In her later works, particularly the 2018 track, The Gypsy Fairy Queen, featuring Nick Cave in the 2021 spoken word album, She Walks in Beauty. Faithful achieves what the ante-Nicene fathers might have called theosis, a participation in the divine through the acceptance of one's finite nature. By setting romantic poetry to the atmospheric textures of Nick Cave and Warren Ellis, she bridges the gap between the Greco Roman tradition of the Sibyl and the Judeo Christian tradition of the Lamentations. In conclusion, as she recites Byron, should we see she has moved from being a singer of songs to becoming the song herself.
To becoming, well, that we like it. To becoming. So, what can you tell us about John Lodge of the Moody Blues, Mr. Meg?
John Lodge, the renowned bassist and vocalist of the Moody Blues, has made significant contributions to the world of rock music. Known for his deep melodic bass lines and rich vocal harmonies, Lodge played a pivotal role in shaping the band's distinctive sounds. One of his most notable performances can be heard in Ride My Seesaw, which showcases his energetic playing and vocals. Apart from his work from the Moody Blues, John Lodge also released solo albums that highlight his songwriting talents. His solo track, Natural Avenue, reflects a more personal and introspective style, demonstrating his versatility as an artist. Fans appreciate this song for its heartfelt lyrics and smooth melodies. Throughout his career, John Lodge has remained a key figure in the progressive rock genre. His collaboration with other band members on classics like I'm Just a Singer in a Rock and Roll Band reveals his ability to blend rock and orchestral elements seamlessly. The song remains a fan favorite and exemplifies the timeless appeal of the Moody Blues. From the pyrotechnic thunder of Kiss to all those that are coming, in conclusion, this is a sonic liturgy of the 1960s and spilling into the 1970s.
Spilling. Well, Mr. Meg, can you survey the electric list of artists who passed away during 2025?
All the way from the pyrotechnic thunder of Kiss to the soulful sunshine of Roy Ayers, these artists reflect a deep psychological and spiritual architecture of the human condition. So, who were the heavy architects who passed away? From 1970s rock, we find the electric Ace Frehley, the original spaceman of Kiss, who embodied the celestial archetype. His performance on Shock Me is more of a guitar solo. It's a somatic energy, an eruption of energy. Frehley's persona suggested a being not entirely of this world, yet grounded in the raw 1950s inspired riffs of Chuck Berry. Similarly, John Sykes' Whitesnake, Thin Lizzy, and George Kuhnmann's Golden Earring provide the heavy liturgy of the late 70s and 80s. Sykes's work on Still of the Night utilizes the blues rock foundation to explore the darker recesses of desire and the restless heart. Kuhlmann's, on the other hand, gave us the ultimate road hymn in Radar Love. This track functions as a modern Axis Mundi, a central pillar of emotion that connects the driver to a distant, almost divine other. Then there's Terry Reid, the voice that almost was, having famously turned down the lead singer spots in both Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple. Reid's career mirrors the missed opportunities we find in the narrow gate that was bypassed. Yet his track Seed of Memory is a masterclass in what contemporary trauma research calls post-traumatic growth. And what we have in soul, funk, neo soul, and the stack sounds, and this is where the soulful and new wave sounds. If rock provides the lightning, soul and funk provide their incarnation. Steve Cropper, the legendary guitarist for Booker T and the MGs, is the architect of the stack sounds. His economy of notes on green onions reflects a stoic virtue, the logos of the groove. There's no waste, every note is a word fitly spoken. In the realm of rock, Clem Burke of Blondie and Rick Buckler of The Jam provide the heartbeat. Burke's powerhouse drumming on Dreaming is a frantic, beautiful attempt to capture the fleeting nature of time. Butler's work on A Town Called Malice reflects the sociological communitas of the mod revival, a shared rhythmic identity in the face of urban decay. The evolution of soul through Angie Stone, Roy Ayers, and Dwayne Wiggins brings us to the somatic experience of the spirit. Ayers, Everybody Loves the Sunshine, is a modern solar hymn utilizing vibraphones to create a state of neurological flow. Stones, Wish I Didn't Miss You, and Wiggins, Feels Good, bridge the gap between the sacred gospel tradition and the profane dance floor. In conclusion, neo soul and new wave attempted to reclaim the soul in an increasingly digital world.
A digital world indeed, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Mike. Thank you. So as we wrap up, how about the switching for everything from teen idols to country rock? The Ian Hunter Connections mapping the rock and roll network. It continues the exploration of Ian Hunter enduring influence on the fabric of rock history, tracing the intricate web of musicians, producers, and cultural moments shaped by his voice, vision, and defiant artistry. So, Mr. Mike, would you like to plug in something?
Sure, you bet. So connect with me on LinkedIn, write the book, grow the business. Remix the Dr. Digital Smith, PhD. Pick up a couple volumes I have on Amazon. That's On Track Ian Hunter and also Burning America. And listen to True Fans, of course, and also listen to my podcast, the Dr. Digital Podcast.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Mink, the Doctor of Digital, and please do listen to our other podcasts, Love Letters, Music 101, of course, and Sex 101. What else are there one, Mr. Mink?
Mental Health, Sex 101, Love Letters.
Yes, Love Letters. Please do listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Mink, thank you so much for your time.
You bet. I want to dedicate this episode to Richard, R.I.P., rest in peace, and Deus Vult.
Welcome, people. See you soon.